To order the regular meeting of the Clark County Election Board today, July the 15th. Myself, Andrew Steele, Democratic appointee. With us also is Tony Singleton, Republican appointee, and Clark County Clerk Ryan Lynch. We have a couple of items on our agenda, but not very many, and I see that we've got plenty of members of the public here. If you guys feel like you wish to, we'll just start at the end. If you would just call out your name, identify yourself. We've got you signed in on the list, but if y'all want to identify yourself for the record on the recording, that's also fine too. So. Greetings, everybody. Thanks for being with us today. We don't have any old business to cover based on our agenda, and we have some new items. First up here is new voter registration that went into effect on July 1st with the new laws. Typically, July 1st is the start of any new legislative period or new legislative laws that came in from the previous period. This sheet that I'm looking at, is this the new form that's been approved by Election Division? Is there anything that is substantially different?
No, it's only voting up here.
Mm-hmm.
It's different about the residency, but that's all that's different.
Can we get a copy of that?
It's over there on the, because these are free to the public.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's also on the SOS side.
The update was to the VRG7 form, which is the standard Indiana voter registration application. There's changed some language regarding advisement for being a U.S. citizen and a resident in your precinct for at least 30 days prior to the next election, not currently being imprisoned or convicted of a crime or being convicted of a crime. You got to provide additional residence documentation before voting if the county is able to match your driver's license number or social security number with an existing Indiana identification record bearing the same number, name and date of birth you provide on the application. Then you have met the requirement. You can also meet this requirement, by submitting proof of residence with this application or any time up until election day. Proof of residence can be submitted by copy of your current or valid photo identification or a copy of your utility bill, bank statement, government check, paycheck, government document that shows your name and address at the address you provided on this application, and don't send the original. So basically, it looks to me like they're putting the advisement that essentially you've got to be a resident in your precinct. You've got to be able to show that you're a resident in your precinct, which typically utility bills or something of that nature is the number one way to do that. I don't know if there's much else to comment on about it, except that this is what's been adopted by Indiana Election Division, and that's what's available now at our counter, and that's what we mail out from this point forward.
Yeah,
There's no other previous forms floating around.
no, some organizations may still, we've had to correct them, but the state is not. None of the old ones are being grandfathered, so you have to use.
You have to use the new.
You have to use them.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
On box 4 resident address,
Uh-huh.
I was arrested for voter fraud because I used an address that, quote, I didn't live at. And when Susan Potts was here, she explained to me that people use addresses such as the FSA office, Social Security office, apartment. They may list their mother or father or just a legal address that they actually don't live at. When my attorney and I looked into this, the word live is not defined in IC code.
Residence is. So, I mean, to be able to serve with legal papers, it's your abode, domicile, wherever you typically sleep at night is
So
what's considered a residence.
Someone is using, quote, a legal address as for their ID, driver's license, their government business, whatever they're doing, and yet they do not, quote, that's not their actual domicile, because as I said, Susan pulled up a list of 18 names that use FSA office as their legal address.
I don't know if,
How do you?
there are
guys
also,
verify that?
you have to understand, there could be people that are in, Indiana has a protection program for victims of domestic violence where they are allowed to use a legal address that is different than where they reside so that their name or personal information isn't discovered. So she may have shown you that. And that was a couple years ago, so I don't know exactly what it was you saw.
And she said they were allowed to vote in that district.
Right, but that would mean that the Secretary of State and the Election Division still has their records on file that show where they reside and that they're legally qualified to vote in whatever precinct they're qualified to vote in.
Okay, then I got a
But
second.
if there's a legal, this is going to ask for your residence, okay? And that when you apply to register to vote at the county courthouse, you have to show proof of residence. If there's any other exceptions or legal orders that grant you an exception from doing that, I would expect you'd have to show those in person here to us at voter registration so that we could get an opinion on how to register you. And usually we call up to IED and find out what's going on. Can this person effectively vote with this information? Now, I don't know if that addresses your concern, but go ahead.
Don't have the form, but like the FSA office uses a different form we don't have access to, only state offices do. So it may be worded different, where they're protected, they're homeless, they have the right to vote, so that's why they're using
She
that
defined it as
address.
transient.
So they have a different form, this is not the form they use, so we can't compare them using this form and the form that they use.
And then another part of that, the question was, in the complaint they used against me, it said that I could not use, quote, a business address as a legal address.
Correct.
Which that means apartment complex people could not legally vote because those are businesses.
Well, I don't know the specifics of what
Yeah.
your charges
Just
were.
out of curiosity, I'm asking how.
Well, I would say that out of curiosity, if someone's here to register to vote, the plain language is your residence. And so you're to answer that as best as you can. Where do you live? If you used a business address and you were convicted of that, then that was not the legal address you could have been using. I don't know what the outcome of your case was, but
It was dismissed.
if it was dismissed, then it was dismissed. But other than that, there's really not much else that we could speculate on.
This is
It's
more of a
pretty straightforward.
curiosity question because of the wording and how some things were explained to me. And
The key is residence. So if theoretically, if it's a business address and it's your residence, that's different than, if I had an office like I used to across the street as a lawyer, that's not my residence, that's my business office. That's the distinction.
come to find out, the address I was using is actually zoned residential. It's not zoned business.
So it says residence address, and then it says if no address, write short description or attach a map.
We clarified up here that there's no street address, as in the state hasn't actually given that location a physical number. You can describe it. Like
Gotcha. So
you
I
owned the
need-
land that didn't have an address on it.
Well, we have some
Susan-
people that say they live behind CVS and Jeff.
Yeah, and
There's people that are registered that way,
Yeah.
so we can put them in a precinct.
Susan Pop explained that part of it too. She said you could put your address as a cornfield or whatever. If there's a,
Wow.
Yeah, but you can live in the county and just own a house out there without a number. on it.
Yeah,
Okay.
the restriction is that any U.S. citizen that's authorized to vote above the age of 18 and not currently incarcerated or convicted of a felony that they're serving time on, they're entitled to vote. So
Sure.
for our purposes, we have to be able to put them into the proper precinct. You cannot be registered in more than one precinct at once. So that is typically the reason why you'd have a description like we do have people that live behind the CVS or at exit 0. That's the other one. It is a location. It is within a
Right.
precinct. So,
I was just wondering.
if we don't have any other comments or anybody hasn't got anything else to add, this is pretty straightforward from the state. So I'm going to move on. We will be Clark County Fairs this week at the 4-H out on 62. It looks like we will be there tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday night. Is that correct? Registering new voters, hopefully. Good. Exciting. We have a booth, and is it up near the front, or
It's
are they in the
back,
back with the?
back, but we're on the main, we're more by the food area. We're on the street part. We'll have the vote here signs.
So if any of y'all want to come up and say hello, I'm sure we'll be glad to have some company. Is that right, Angela?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's also the hottest week of the year so far. So
Wednesday is going to have a break in the weather, so just FYI.
my experience is a break in the weather leads to rain at the 4-H fair,
Yes,
and
just
you do
storm.
not want to smell the midway when that ground is wet. And I'm not talking about the stalls. I'm talking about where the rides are set up. That mud is some of the most pungent dirt I have ever smelled.
And the air conditioner's not working I was there yesterday, it's not working in the food center.
Oh, and the food.
Well,
Oh, man.
Or the arena busted last night all
Go.
over some lake.
Go bid on a dessert and then get out. Well, then we've got the Easy Vote. Easy Vote is up and running for candidates in public. That's our website
Campaign finance.
with the campaign finance information. Is that correct? Excellent. And we've got no complaints or hiccups or
Has anybody tried it yet?
has anybody tried the Easy Vote website?
Could you explain it a little further into detail what it
Ryan knows the details
So
pretty
it's
well.
just our new system that we're using to, one, house campaign finance reports online, and then two, we're encouraging candidates that can now file their campaign finance reports through that system, so they can keep track of their reports, throughout the year, and then submit it to us before the right before the deadline, and then we can we can approve them through that system, and then it goes straight from there to the public side, so that they can be seen immediately. The idea is that it's kind of like if you ever filled out your tax forms online or done anything like that. There are boxes, and the candidates it tells them exactly what to put in, and they can fill it out, and then it builds their campaign finance report to submit to us.
And they're legible.
are
And
they?
they're legible.
So it will is it housing the older forms now?
So right now it's housing from 2020 till now, but then we still have everything that we've gotten. Everything is still on the previous website. It's still
Are you
there.
Are you gonna archive on the new website?
So you mean like as time moves on? Or?
Yeah. So you have, how far back does the current website go with the campaign finance forms? How many years?
I think we've got some that are 2019, 2018. I'd have to look. I haven't looked in a little bit. But
Do you have dollars in your budget for like archiving and stuff like that? Do you have dollars in your budget for that kind of stuff?
not specific. Like it's not like titled archiving, but I mean, I'm sure there's a way that we can do that. And through the system, that we have the ability to archive through the Easy Vote system. As well.
Okay, that's good. Because I always am interested in the older ones, especially like mine. When I ran, I like to go back and take a look
So,
at my donors in case I intend to run again. I can go and look at my donor list because my file's somewhere else. No, but anyway, I'm just curious about that. Okay.
Ryan, is that a site primarily for local or county candidates as opposed to, the state has its own site for state level?
state has its own. It's not required for counties to offer this. There's only a handful of counties that do for their local candidates. We actually can't require candidates to use it. They still have the option to fill it out by hand and submit it to us, but then we can still scan it to put it on the
Scan it and add it. Oh,
scan it
good.
and add it
Yeah.
to the system. So it's there's a lot of options. We're still learning the capabilities, obviously, because we've only had it for a little bit. But so far, we're pretty happy with it and pretty excited. We've got this wonderful space here that if candidates want to come in and learn how to fill it out, we've got the step-by-steps, and they can come in here and sit all day if they want and figure out how to submit them online. The idea is that they can fill them out and get them to us as soon as possible. We get them online as quick.
Yeah, that's
I can
good.
say just sitting here, I've pulled it up on my phone, and it's So far, it's got 105 candidates listed, and they are all city and county races that we've had over the last, you said since 2019?
So we moved over
Easy ones on
2020, yeah, from 2020.
Okay. So yeah, it looks pretty nice, actually. Pretty straightforward, and it looks like you can sort by name or office. So
I have a question.
it's worth checking out. Go ahead.
Sorry, I thought you were pausing or
No, no.
So is there a requirement that you do keep those forms in office? Is there a requirement indefinitely, or after so
So,
many years, can
4
you
years is
dispose?
what the county or the state requires us to keep campaign finance reports for 4 years. So essentially, if you ran in 2018 for something, we would keep them until the general election of 2022, is what the state requires.
Okay.
But you
But
could do
not
more,
very
sorry
long.
to cut you off. I think maybe some of these laws are written in a way because everything used to be paper and
Sure.
for purposes of running out of physical room, it's
Right.
saying keep for 4 years. But now that everything's digital,
Right, I
I
mean,
would
if we
just
have it
hope that we
digitally,
could
we're
do-
not gonna go through and delete it, just for the sake of deleting.
okay,
If we've scanned, once we scan it and get it on there, we don't have to keep the digital form. The idea is that I'd like to get away from having this massive drawer over here that, weighs 500 pounds.
So you have mine still, you think, from 2011? Is it gone?
Couldn't tell you.
It's gone.
It's gone.
I would
It's
say
gone.
it's probably
Shaking her
gone.
head behind you.
Yeah, she was shaking.
It's quite a bit away.
Okay, thank you. That was-
Yeah. The only other thing that I've got in front of me is this looks to be an advertisement for the for voter registration with our website, phone number, and information. This
We're
obviously
taking
be
that with us
up at the
to
fair.
get people registered to vote, registered to be a poll worker.
In the election
Yeah.
information system.
Well, and I
get
like
the
this
text
too.
messaging
This is
system.
Hall
And that's for
Pass.
the school, yeah.
So,
it's high school.
Indiana law allows us now to recruit 16 and 17-year-olds. You don't have to be 18 or older and a registered voter to be able to assist at the polls.
Oh,
And
wait a second on that one. They dinged my son for that.
He was under 16.
He was 15, wasn't
He
he?
was 15.
Yes, but I was told originally it was normally when it comes to election stuff, it's 16 by the general election, not 16 by the primary.
It's 16 when they're working,
When they're working.
when
Okay.
they're underage.
okay, so age
There was a question
16
about that.
at the time that they're at the polls. Yeah, 16 and 17-year-olds are allowed to work at polling locations on election day in the Hoosier Hall Pass poll worker recruitment program. So this, I think it's a pretty clever way to get kids at the high school excited about coming and working. We still pay for those positions too, correct?
Yes,
Yeah. So it also is a way to pick up a little extra money. I'll just leave these since they're going into our paperwork. But if anybody wants them, you're free to review them too. I can see that it's got. I like that. Everybody knows that our core of poll workers is aging, and it's hard to convince young kids today that they have a stake in this process. And it's exciting when we do have young kids come out. It's kind of forced work for my children. As they were growing up, I would have them here doing things on election day. I can only hope that other people force their kids to work the polls, because to me it's not negotiable. It's
Like a
one of those
government
things you have
teacher.
to do.
You would think a government teacher would give extra credit or
I would hope.
whatever.
We're giving extra pay, so I mean,
They're making money and
you
getting
pick up a
credit.
check for working the polls for a day.
Yes, we do.
We don't really have any other public business. We'll take public questions if anybody's got anything, any issues. So raise your hand and be recognized if you've got something.
Three of us. We had
Three of us,
some
we're gonna read
comments about-
something, and then we're going to give you what we have.
Yeah, and
Okay.
yeah, we'll put that in our minutes.
Christina Kelty. We are requesting the election board review the expenditures listed on the 2023 campaign finance reports for 3 separate committees, PACs, that we are submitting to you today. Please note that these are just a few of the questionable expenditures. There are many other campaign finance forms with questionable items, but these were selected as initial ones for the election board to review. The concern is that campaign finance forms are not audited or reviewed by anyone. While these items might be legitimate, there is no way for anyone to know since there is no oversight. Please note that various federal relevant laws and Indiana codes are attached to the document presented to you. Your prompt attention to this matter would be appreciated. Hoosiers for Jeffersonville PAC, Chuck Moore, chairperson, Angela Moore, treasurer, replaced by Judith Van Gilder on 4/13/24. 46 Arctic Springs, Jeffersonville, Indiana, 47130. Here are the expenditures in question. The UPS store, $540 paid on 4/21/23 for post office box, yet campaign address is 46 Arctic Springs, not a P.O. box. Second one is MDL Strategies, 3310-4 East 10th Street, number 359, Jeffersonville, Indiana, which $75,000 paid. I'm sorry, let me correct that. $7,500 paid 7/31/23 for consulting fees. MDL Strategies was not found on the Secretary of State website, and there is no street address listed, just a P.O. box. Number 3 is Scott McVoy, $13,500 paid on 10/16/23, plus another $13,500 on 10/18/23, which is a total of $27,000. The address is 12524 Greenbrier Boulevard, Sellersburg, Indiana, for consulting fees and fundraising. Mr. McVoy said this was compensation for organizing the mayor's golf event. If so, why wasn't it paid by the I'm for Mike Moore campaign? And the last one is Jeff Republicans PAC, $24,500 paid on 9/7/2023, plus another $2,195 paid on 11/30/2023. The address is 3310-4 East 10th Street, number 359, Jeffersonville, for contributions.
Which that address is the same as MDL Strategies. Two different, same address, two different PO box.
I'm just following through on that. For number 2, the Jeff Republicans Political Action Committee, Ron Grooms chairperson, Angela Merkley treasurer, 3310-4 East 10th Street, number 359, Jeffersonville. And then a note is this PAC was organized on 9/1/23 and disbanded on January 16 of this year. The only contributions received were from the Hoosiers for Jeff PAC, a total of $26,695. And there are 2 expenditures in question. The first one is Galaxy Media Services. 3 payments of $5,071.66, each paid on September 27, September 29, and September 30 of 23. Plus an additional payment of $8,946 paid on December 4th. Total paid was $24,160.98. The second one was on November 2 of 23, Engagement Strategies, payment of $2,394.84 for voter outreach. So the question is, if the only source of contributions received by the Jeff Republicans PAC are from the Hoosiers for Jeffersonville PAC, and there were only 2 companies who were paid with these funds, Galaxy and Engagement Strategies, why didn't the Hoosiers for Jeffersonville PAC pay these 2 expenses directly rather than setting up a separate PAC. And then also note that the address for the Jeff Republicans PAC is a post office box located at the UPS store in Jeff. There was no payment made by Jeff Republicans PAC to pay for a post office box. Post office box number given for Jeff Republicans PAC is also the address for MDL Strategies, which was paid by Hoosiers for Jeffersonville PAC on 10/16/23 in the amount of $7,500 for consulting fees. And MDL was also paid $35,000 by the I'm for Mike Moore Committee for consulting fees.
And they want me to finish up with you guys. I'm from Mike Moore Committee, Michael Moore, Chairperson, Judith Van Gelder, Treasurer, 52 Arctic Springs, Jeffersonville, Indiana, P.O. Box 823, Jeffersonville, Indiana. The expenditures in question: John Jones Auto, 1450 East Highway 60, Salem, Indiana, paid $16,326.75 for vehicle. Why was a vehicle needed for this campaign, and when the mayor was running unopposed? What type of vehicle was purchased, year, make, model? Who was the vehicle titled to? Number 2, Amy Huffman, 944 East 7th Street, Jeffersonville, Indiana, paid $5,000 on April 18, 2023, May 22nd, 2023, June 26, 2023, plus paid $7,500 on July 31st, 2023, for a total of $22,500 for consulting fees and campaign staff. Number 3, Christy O'Neill, 7086 Plum Creek, Clarksville, Indiana, paid $7,500 on July 28, 2023 for campaign staff. Note, both Ms. Huffman and Ms. O'Neill are full-time employees of the city of Jeffersonville and work in the mayor's office. If they were hired as campaign staff, they should be paid W-2 wages, subject to federal, state, and FICA withholding. The campaign would also have to pay the employee's share of FICA tax. There's no indication on the campaign finance forms that payroll taxes were paid. Did these women receive W-2 forms? Did they receive a 1099? Was all the work performed outside of their normal working hours? Number 4, MDL Strategies, 3310 4 East 10th Street, Box 359, Jeffersonville, paid $8,750 on April 1st, 2023, May 1st, 2023, June 1st, 2023, and July 1st, 2023, a total of $35,000 for consulting fees. Note, MDL Strategies also paid $7,500 on July 31st, 2023 by Hoosiers for Jeff PAC. MDL Strategies was not found on the Secretary of State's website, and there is no street address listed, just P.O. Box. A lot of this stuff's questionable. We'd like for you guys to look into it. From my experience in working with someone and following the document, I'd want to have been here and handed it to him. Somebody looked over it, stamped it, made a copy, and walked out the door. And that's all the auditing is done to this stuff. These are just small examples. This is going on across the nation. There could be trillions in campaign financing corruption going on. But where does the auditing start?
The auditing starts with the public. It's assumed that most of the campaigns will be checking their opponents' financial papers, and then that's when we usually get the complaint. If we receive them, I know that I don't have the expertise of being a full-time accountant, and I don't expect any of the other board members to either. Unless something's necessarily brought to our attention, we may not ever know what's correct or incorrect on a certain form. So the expectation is that it's why we have an adversarial system, is the complaint is going to be brought to us by another campaign or a concerned citizen or somebody else in the public, because at the same time, if we're going to sit here and ask to be reviewing them, if we would necessarily become a witness in our own case if we were auditing them ourselves and then having to process or go through to see where we had questions. So it truthfully maintains the adversarial system where the complaint is usually brought to us by a member of the public or somebody else. If we sat and read through all of the finance reports, we probably wouldn't get through a whole lot of business.
Do you consider this a complaint?
Yes, when I take that, I'm going to look at it as a complaint. I'm gonna start the process myself of reviewing what you guys have sent to us. I'm gonna want to look at the reports, and then I'm going to be trying to contact the campaigns that are in question there in those PACs to see what their response is. At a minimum, you cited, there's a lot of money there, right?
Yeah.
There's
Which
so much more. I mean, this is just.
I would be
yeah.
satisfied if they could show us what the money was spent for, rather than a simple, budgetary line that said so much paid to so-and-so consultant. If I recall, you said that there's nothing registered with the Indiana Secretary of State's. Well, I don't know if they're formally doing business as anything other than a consulting organization or something like that. I'm not aware of what the requirement would be, so I'm going to end up calling Indiana Election Division and saying, hey, what's the story here? What should I be looking for as far as a group that's getting paid?
Something that's not in here that was brought up to me was that some of these contributions exceed the maximum contribution amounts also.
Right, but from PACs, it's a different story. Individuals, you're limited, but from PACs, they can usually give unlimited amounts as long as it isn't specifically coordinated with a campaign. I mean, that's the federal guideline because they reason that cash is speech. I don't necessarily see it that way. I don't see corporations or PACs as human beings, but that's exactly the way they get treated legally, so that's their status. Again, until I have an opportunity to look at it and Tony and Ryan get a chance to look at it, I can't speak to anything else. I can just give you my broad opinion of what the law states, and you stop me if I'm wrong.
Sure.
But, the system is adversarial in nature. It's designed to be pointed out by candidates and concerned citizens.
I like to qualify with what we all said. Primarily, most of these people sitting in here are Republicans, and they brought you information regarding Republicans. So we're not trying to be biased in any regard.
I don't necessarily
It was
see
just
that.
something that's been brought up.
Right.
From my research on this, going back many years, these issues have been brought up for years and years and years. There's been
Campaign
many
finance issues
editorials
are
wrote about
bipartisan. I
other-
don't think that there's, if somebody's dipping their hand in the cookie jar, I don't think it's necessarily a Democratic or Republican problem. I think
It
it's
is.
both problems.
Or libertarian.
So, or libertarian.
So when you look at this and you do find problems, which you probably will, what are you gonna do?
Well-
Will you have to hire an auditor? Well, how does it work?
We're not going there yet.
How
Typically,
does it play out?
you're
Well,
familiar with
obviously,
how we
it's done.
try to process things here. I try to make everything as much as possible public as possible. If there is something concerning there, I'm not gonna do anything without getting a directive from Indiana Election Division on what the next best step is gonna be. And in most cases, we've had hearings where all parties are present. You'll get the opportunity to state your case and the complaint, and then they'll get an opportunity to respond or show us evidence. If the evidence is satisfactory for us, I don't usually foresee us going much further because we have the opportunity to correct things after the fact. That's why it's there.
When they
If-
do have opportunity to present their evidence, that is also a public venue.
Absolutely, we can't adjudicate or hear
I just wanna
anything
make
off
sure
the
that's
record.
known.
So, that's a big no-no. It's an open door law. So we can only deliberate on questions while we're in session sitting there in front of you. If they are able to provide information and the complainants are satisfied and the board's satisfied, typically in the past, when we've had questions like that, it resolves itself and there's no reason to get much further into it. And, an admonishment that in the future you need to be more clear in what you file. If there's some evidence that there might be criminal activity or something going on, again, we want to get an opinion from IED, and then before we make any referrals to a law enforcement agency, double check that we're doing that, because at that point, the board becomes witnesses in a criminal action, because we're the ones that are reporting it. It's not necessarily a good idea to want to be a witness in a criminal action, right? So just one step at a time is the way I would try to handle it as best as possible. I want to see what you've got, and I want to try to see what we can do with it. the extent of our power and what we're able to do, we can issue fines, we can issue penalties, we can hold people in contempt if they don't respond to us. Hopefully none of that will happen. In the past, I have found that our board versus the other counties in the state, we usually get along and we try to work with our public as best as we can. I don't like conflicts personally. I think it's a waste of time. And that when people are presented with information, they need to own up to it. If you're responsible, you need to accept it, swallow the pill, and move on. We typically work better, it's my experience, than most other counties in our area. Some of them are pretty adversarial, and I know that depending on political situations in each counties, some board members can't even get their phone calls returned by their own election board voter registration staff, and I've seen that before. So it's like if I called down here to Angela, or if I sent her an email and said, hey, could you check on this for me, and she just never responded to me, that's kind of not a good thing. So that's the reason why I like it being transparent and above board, and everybody can see where we're at with stuff. So please, if you have additional copies, leave them with Angela, and I will pick mine up later this week, hopefully, and start looking through it and see what we can do to answer these questions.
I have copies for you all.
Sure.
I'm holding your copies, and I just wanted to read a couple of the Indiana codes at the end. They're not lengthy. But I just wanted to point out that the treasurer of a committee shall obtain, this is Indiana Code 39124, the treasurer of a committee shall obtain and keep receipts, bills, canceled checks, or other proof of payment, stating that particulars for each expenditure made on or behalf of the committee. So I hope that when you're talking about, of course, we want everyone to get along as well, but I hope that this is really looked at seriously.
Yes.
And that administrative process is followed, that you all are the impartial people here, you're not any one particular person's advocate, but bank accounts should be produced and receipts should be produced to show these
We do have
expenses.
subpoena power. It's limited, and we would have to go through the county attorney if we decided to use that. I think we've only used that one other time. In my tenure here, it's rare. My expectation is that people are to cooperate with us. If I don't receive information, then I will consider going to law enforcement with the complaint. But other than that, again, I want to see what they can bring us first. If we still have questions that are outstanding that don't satisfy the complainants, right? If the people that are making the allegation or bringing the information to us can't turn their back and walk away, or they're not satisfied, and there's being satisfied and then there's being unreasonably unsatisfied, is that if people do make a good faith effort and they produce sufficient information, that should satisfy most people. Continuing to believe that they're lying or digging deeper and expecting something to be produced from what they've had is not necessarily an unreasonable reasonable expectation of what's given. So recognizing that there's human beings throughout the process. This is not a criminal tribunal. We don't have the rules of evidence the same way that any kind of criminal tribunal would. So all that being considered, it's a cooperative effort between everybody, and that's the way I would try to steer it.
And that's why we include, excuse
Yeah.
me for cutting you off.
Sure, go ahead.
That's why we included the law.
Yeah.
Because you all do have opportunity to request without subpoena, so that it becomes more
Most
of a.
people don't listen unless there's a court order attached.
Well,
So
hopefully.
we can ask, but usually subpoenas are going to be what we would have to use if they don't want to turn over the information.
Well, it says the State Board of Accounts can also be called in to assist. It also says that if you do find any evidence of a potential violation or crime, it needs to be turned over to the prosecuting attorney. And we hope that these are not crimes,
Well,
but when you
under
see.
the election board law too, we're also required to have a campaign finance hearing. That we have to have specific findings in our hearing that this is a violation, this is a violation, this is a violation, and that's before any criminal referral.
Okay,
So,
what is the cap for businesses to donate to an individual?
I'm not aware off the top of my head if there is.
Okay, because I sent you all an email to hopefully get that
Right.
answer, but it's been a few days.
I've
Depends
got
on the way, I don't mean to interrupt, it depends on the way that the business, I've been kind of, not to make excuses, but I've been pretty swamped over there.
Sure.
Here lately, but the amount of money is kind of dependent on how the business entity was created. Corporations are one thing, sole proprietorships are another, LLCs kind of fall with the sole proprietorship. One of the laws that I think you talked about specifically said corporations. So it kind of depends on how the entity was created. So in order for us to look more into that or enforce that, we obviously would have to find out exactly what type of entity it was and stuff like that. I wish I had printed it off beforehand. I apologize, but it does kind of depend on the type of business that it is. It's not like a business umbrella, for all of them, but there are different values for different types.
Well, I will email you all another list of, now this is not from PAC, this is specifically for I'm for Mike Moore, over the $2,000 threshold. I'm not sure how the businesses are set up, but there is a whole list of businesses, and one is $10,000. So for a company to be giving a candidate $10,000 and it just be left alone, I mean, that's a major red flag to me. That is way over the limit. So I think that, some things have just gone on unaccounted for a while, and with the large movement of money that we've seen in another area of the county that are, with Mr. Knoll, we are very concerned about these large movements of money. I hope that they're nothing, but we're certainly not going to allow for it. So this is where we need to start, and I just hope that you all will take it very seriously.
Sure.
Because we need to demonstrate to other people who are about to turn in their campaign finance forms
Don't lie.
that it needs to look good. Okay, this is the whole point of campaign finance forms is for transparency. So when you got fishy looking things going on, a message needs to be sent to everybody moving forward that their campaign finance forms are for transparency, not for layering, paying different PACs, and doing all this funny business. So that's
why we've come here today. And this is the tip of the iceberg. And we are counting on you all to do your job and to do your very best and to help get things lined up in this county in your area. Can't do everything about everything. This is your all's area. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
I got one more comment. Now, on the campaign finance reporting form, I helped somebody with their campaign, a couple $1,000. I'm trying to make sure that it added up to the penny under the penalty of perjury. And these people are out here doing tens and thousands of dollars under the penalty of perjury.
hundreds of thousands.
Oh,
Hundreds
yeah.
of thousands of dollars, and I'm worried about a $2,000 campaign and putting my signature on it. I mean, I took it serious, very serious. If somebody doesn't like me, they're gonna have you're off 20 cents or 18 cents or something.
Right. Thank you all.
We are take it serious. We're glad you guys listened to us. Thank you.
No,
We appreciate
you bringing it. If this is a lot, obviously, so there'll be some homework. Our next meeting, we're scheduled for the third week or the third Monday in August, the 19th of August. Hopefully I get an opportunity. I can at least start reading through this stuff, and we'll do 4:45 as usual. Is that okay, gentlemen? Yeah. Then I'll make a motion that we recess till the 19th of August. I'll make a motion that we incorporate into our minutes all of the pieces that were discussed here, plus additional copies of the information provided by our citizens during the meeting. Is there a second to that?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you all for coming and bringing this up.
Thank you. It's not adjourned yet.
We're recessed.
Recess, I'm sorry. You said that. I'm sorry. I did hear you.